So we'll start off by talking about human behavior. This is like my jam. This is where I live. I spend more time studying this than just about anything else that I do. Over the last few years, I've kind of almost ran out of stuff to study. I tried game theory this year, but it's the first time I ever ran into something that's just too damn hard for me to understand. I just can't do it. But previously, I've pretty much read everything that's ever been written, I think, about copywriting. I've watched endless hours of Gary Halbert videos and Dan Kennedy videos and went to tons of sessions and all those things about copywriting. And I still felt like I fell short of being a good copywriter, right? So about, I guess, 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to try to look at different areas that people use persuasion in. The first year I did cults. I learned about cult behavior. The next year I learned about politics, political coups, political speech writing. I did a year of that. So I'll do a whole year studying a subject. My favorite year were primates. That was my absolutely favorite year because primates are about that far from us, whether we want to admit it or not. And the experimentation done with primates on behavior is brilliant. There's a lady named Loretta Bruning. I didn't put her book in here. I should have, but make a note of it. She has a book called Meet Your Happy Brain Chemicals, which is the worst title for a book ever in the history of books. But she's a primatist out of, I think out of San Diego maybe. And she's been studying primates for 30 years, primate behavior, doing all these primate experimentation, these different experiments with primates, and how their brain chemical bath changes based on certain stimuli. And that was a fantastic year. And that year, I think at TNC, I did a talk called Monkeys and Politicians, because the overlay between political speech writing and primate behavior is uncanny. It's truly remarkable. And we'll talk about that a lot. I'm going to use the Trump campaign in a lot of my examples. Whether you're a Trump fan or not, doesn't really matter. The way that they won the campaign is fascinating. Whether that was their intent or not. A lot of and there's debate on whether it was intent or pure luck. It seems like it would be more intent than luck to me, but based on somebody who writes offers. But we'll talk about that a great deal. Last year I studied subcultures. So I studied suspending piercers. I studied bears, otters, and pups. If anybody wants to talk about that. I studied master-slave relationships, all sorts of stuff. I don't think I got anything good at it. It was an entertaining year, but I don't think I learned a lot. And then this year, I wanted to do game theory, and I've already quit. So if anybody knows what I should study next, please let me know. So the objective here is to figure out what makes people buy things that they don't need, right? The vast majority of what you're selling, probably, people don't really need, right? And if they do, you might be in the wrong business, right? Surprise. Typically speaking, things that people need are commodities, right? Nobody needs to take better photos, right? They want to, right? There's not much elasticity in the price of things that people need. If you need a mop, you can be you can be a millionaire, right? And go to the store, and if one mop's $2.99 and one mop's $3.99, you're likely to buy the $2.99 mop. You just need a mop, right? Gasoline's a great example. It's hard to even get people to buy Chevron over another brand of gasoline because it kind of doesn't matter anymore. But when it comes to something people want, that's where we get to play. That's the world we get to play in. So that's what we want to learn today. So I'm going to show you at least five, this was 5. I think I'm up to 12 in the slides. I didn't change the slide. Triggers that force us to buy goods and services. So this is kind of the law that you need to write down. It's your first writer downer. People buy things that make them feel better about themselves. That's just that, right? No matter what you're selling, there's an emotional tie-in that you need to make, right? It's how you can take your product and make people feel better about themselves when they buy it, right? People want to learn to take, I keep pointing because I know Cole's down here, he's easy to pick on. So, and I know a little bit about his business, but you know, people want to take better photos because they want to show those photos to other people, right? It's not about the photo itself. It's about the feeling they get when they show someone else their work, right? So read this. People buy things that make them feel better about themselves. Doesn't mean they're better, doesn't mean they're worse. This means it makes them feel better, right? So offers are all about emotion. If you can learn nothing else from this weekend, learn that, right? Dan Kennedy says offers are about emotion. Marketing is all about emotions and mathematics, emotions and arithmetic. And he's absolutely right? Some offers work, some offers don't. That's the math side of the business. But from the offer creation side of the business, if you can learn to poke those emotional triggers well enough, you can sell practically anything. And without making great big claims, right? That's the lesson that I learned. For you guys that don't know, I'll stop here and tell a minute of a story. So 11 years ago, I was making, I was grossing a little over $3 million a month in my business. My personal salary every week was $100 grand. That's what went directly into my bank account, ACH every week. And still at the end of every month or two, I'd have to go take $1 million or $2 million out and go put it in another account with an investment person. Was killing it, right? But I was selling supplements and dietary products that, I don't know how many of you guys are in the supplement say business. I don't say supplement, I say supplement say business. So it's a very litigious business, right? I got in a lot of trouble because I made claims that I believed were true. I still believe were true. There was documentation those claims were true. But the truth is, you can't say it, it don't matter, right? I totally screwed up, and I lost everything in the world, just like that, instantly, right? I lost a lot of friends, lost a lot of money, a lot of friends that probably weren't friends. A few of those friends are still in the room, so I know that I didn't lose all of them. But I lost all my money, I lost all my things, I almost lost my freedom, right? And I think most people, why, I don't know why I didn't. But I think most people would have tucked their tail and went and got a job and done something else, right? But I didn't figure at that point anybody would hire me anyway. So I decided I got to truck through this, right? And fortunately, my friend Ryan Dice reached out to me with a lot of help during that situation. And after that situation and said, what are you going to do? And my phone wasn't ringing, right? Nobody was looking. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any friends. And I was $3 million in debt, right? So I went to Austin with Ryan and started building Digital Marketer. And that's how this all started 11 years ago. But what I found during that process, I knew that I could never do business the way I'd done business in the past, right? I had to do it differently. And that's when I really started to study in earnest human behavior and motivation, because I knew there were ways. We had written a sales letter. I'll never forget it. We had written a sales letter during that time about an energy product. And another copywriter had written it. And we had all kinds of claims about stamina and energy and stuff. But his claim was, do you remember where you ran? Do you remember when you were young and you ran everywhere you went just because it felt good? Right? You remember that. Nostalgia gets you, right? And that sales letter crushed. So it gave me hope that we could still sell things without making physical claims. And the more that I write and the more that I'm into this, I realize that's more and more and more and more true. Because it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if somebody, I'll give you an example. If somebody, so I call it peeling the onion, right? So I call it peeling the onion. So you give me an example of a headline for weight loss is lose 30 pounds in 30 days, right? That's been used forever. It's unbelievable. It's not tactile. It's totally unemotional. But you tell a story about going into so I went to the site reluctantly. My girlfriends, we all were going to the mall because my best friend was getting married and we're going to try on bridesmaid dresses. Fortunately for me, they were black dresses. Everybody was to get a little black dress. And I went to the store, and I kind of milled around until nobody was really looking. And I started fanning back to the dresses, toward the back of the rack where the bigger sizes were. And I finally found one I thought might fit me. So I went in the dressing room. I put it on, and I looked into the mirror, and I saw, the thing barely zipped up. There were bulges, and there were pieces of me that weren't there before. And I realized it was time to do something different. Which is more impactful, right? I made no claim, right? But it's much more impactful. Like, they laughed when I said I was a photographer, but when they went to my gallery show, right? That whole pitch was about, when I sat down to play, that whole pitch was not about playing the piano, it was about how it felt to play the piano, right? So if you guys can learn to peel that onion, right? And get down to the real why anybody's buying your thing, right? It becomes so easy, so much easier to write your copy. So learn to peel the onion. First thoughts are, as you're beginning to mill this around in your brain right now, start thinking about the emotional reasons why people actually are buying what you're selling, right? And concentrate on that far more than you're concentrating on the tactile reason, right? How much a bottle of wine? Exactly, right? What's your most expensive? This gentleman's a sommelier. So what's your most expensive bottle of wine that you sell? Just under 11,000. What's the cheapest bottle of wine you guys have? Still made out of grapes? Yeah. So there's a lot of, taste is subjective, obviously. And I'm sure that $80 wine's still probably okay wine, right? Yeah, he's like, meh. But he'd rather sell the 11 grand wine. But people buy wine for all different reasons. We went to Napa Valley, Roland and I did, and I'm purely Napa Valley material. And we go into all these wineries where he goes and spends loads and loads of money, and they know how to kiss butt up there. They're amazing. And I go as the redneck partner who just grosses people out. I was more fascinated with the spit buckets than anything else, because they drink and they spit it into the ice. And I'm like, what do y'all do with that? Because I could afford that. But they all have this emotional story of how, well, we bought the vineyard because of the oak tree out front's over 300 years old, and there was a spike driven in it by the man who founded the mountain, 200 years ago, and the tree's grown around the spike, and it's at a certain elevation and yada yada. So we built the house and the vineyard around the spike. Welcome to Old Spike Vineyards. What do you got? Grape juice, right? That's what they got. They all got the same thing. They're all selling grape juice. But the better the story, up goes the price, right? They got to have good wine. There's good wine, there's bad wine, there's all kinds of wine in between. But for the most part, when you're on those wine tours, you're buying the story as much as you're buying the wine. And some of those guys, by the way, are amazing copywriters. What's the guy's name I like so much? The guy with the little house. Dakota Shy. Dakota Shy Wineries. Get on their newsletter. He writes a big emotional newsletter every month. Pardon me? Todd Newman. Yeah. It's Dakota Shy Wineries, really great at emotionalizing the purchase of a wine. He actually has wine they only sell in. I thought that was a great hook. They sell some of their wine. It's only in magnums. It's called Social Currency, and they only bottle it in magnums because it's meant to lubricate the conversation. Basically, it's meant to be shared with friends, a stimulated conversation to have a good time. Shouldn't be drank alone, right? In a box, like I drink. I don't drink anymore. Not right now.